Hello, and welcome to our video contemplation of Day Signature 50. This frequency corresponds to the Six of Wands and the wand virtue of, wait for it,
Miracles.
Miracles. It is represented by the angels of conviction and attunement.
Yes. So we have the 28th angel of conviction, who walks the pathway of wholeheartedness to become the embodiment of daring. And then we also have the 50th angel of attunement, who walks the pathway of the curator to become the embodiment of harmony.
Yeah. As will be our new normal, we're also going to share the prime instinct that corresponds to this position. The prime instinct is the instinct to rise.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes.
we have the...
Connects to the redemption card.
Yeah, the instinct to rise is held by the 16th prime, which we call redemption. Yeah. In traditional tarot, that 16th card is known as the Tower. It has been elevated to hold and represent this theme of redemption. So in a way, this certainly carries over into the energy of the day, but really the word we want you to remember is the word rise. This instinct to rise. You can feel someone like standing up maybe for the first time. It's like, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely carries over this image of the tower from traditional tarot.
Yeah, we're going to look at that for sure.
Yeah, you can imagine in the traditional tarot, you see this tower falling, but we're looking at it completely from a different perspective where the focus is on rising, not this crumbling tower.
Yeah, I fully expect to take time working that metaphor because it just flows so perfectly into kind of every corner of what we've been sensing in this day. So I'd love to return to that. This idea of rising, I also can't help but hear the words of Jesus speaking to the paralytic saying, stand up and walk. You know, and it's got, this day has that feeling about it. It's like, it doesn't matter if you've never encountered a miracle before, if you feel that that's the case, or if you feel like you couldn't possibly rise given your position. The fact of the matter is that this day speaks to a power in you that you may or may not have ever met before. And it celebrates that power and it calls your attention to that power. And I'm laughing internally as I use the word power over and over again because we know that to be the very essence of this set of virtues. So of course it shows up here again. There's so much to look at here. In the lead up to this, I'm feeling like a jittery excitement. There's just so much goodness. So let's rewind as we normally would to the beginning. Let's break down the Six of Wands briefly. And then I think almost immediately we should absolutely return to this image of a tower and expand on what we're seeing in it.
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So the six has special keynotes applied to it in the same way that every number previous to it has. The two main keynotes that we've worked with when it comes to the six in any set of virtues are
celebration and home.
Celebration and home.
I feel like we can definitely expand on what we mean by these two keynotes.
Yes, and we ought to. Let's do that. Let's begin with celebration.
Celebration's kind of the most obvious because if you've been watching our videos, you know that we're all about it. We're all about celebration, seeing everything in life as cause for celebration. And the number 6 really is very representative of that sort of ultimate understanding that everything is a cause for celebration.
Yes.
It's perfection, it's beauty, it's all of the things that we most value. It's all about quality over quantity.
Yes.
Yes. And it's the same sort of thing. We can translate that idea into also this idea of home, that your home is the ultimate truth. And that is representative of that feeling that you have of home is like the sigh of relief, you know?
Yeah. So let's make sure that what you actually said is what they're hearing, because it's very important. Your home is the truth itself.
Right.
Is not to say that the house you live in is the truth.
Right.
It's that truth itself is your home. Mm-hmm. There's a reason that there's this sense of deep familiarity that comes with recognition of the truth. Mm-hmm. You've been there before because you've always been there.
Yeah, the 64 angels have used this word home over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we think in terms of the home, of course, because the home that you live in can become this symbolic representation of the inner reality that you choose to hold, right? Mm-hmm. We also think in terms of the home of the heart. We bring that into this as well. The 6 is very much connected to the heart, the family, the home in this regard. But ultimately what we're finding here is that home is that relaxing into a deep awareness of the truth, a primal awareness of the underlying truth. Mm-hmm. Celebration, rewinding for a moment to that, is very exciting to us because of how active the word is. Celebration demands engagement. You're not celebrating unless you are celebrating on purpose. It's not a celebration unless you show up. Mm-hmm. This somehow extends beyond gratitude, easily extends beyond gratitude, somehow even extends beyond appreciation. It's this kind of prolific, very, very active and even dynamic expression of what it is that you love. And it's this direct line of connection to the miracle that surrounds you. You are aware of it. And so, of course, you marvel at the miracle. Of course, you celebrate. You literally walk through life with this sense of wow written all over your face and inscribed on your heart, because that's what life deserves. And also because that's what you deserve. Mm-hmm. Because you deserve to encounter life as the gift that it is, rather than some phantom of detriment that we've been tricked into thinking it is. Mm-hmm. It's a miracle, and so we celebrate. The 6 brings all of this to the fore of our awareness, and the fact that this is a day where we're working with the 6 of Wands. It's got a lot of energy in it, a lot of fire, a lot of dynamism, a lot of intent, and a lot of movement. So this is an active celebration. That's the first thing we realize today. Whatever else we may see, whatever else we may learn, and whatever circumstances may unfold, this is a day of celebration.
Yeah, it reminds me of celebrating our own power.
Oh, yes.
Because
wow.
We've got mm-hmm. wands, which is the essence of the wands is power. And we're celebrating the miracle of our own power.
Yeah, that's great. Mm-hmm. And we're celebrating the return to our home, this direct line of connection to the truth itself, mm-hmm. and how all of that power, all of that truth, all of that love, all of that beauty delivers itself over to us in direct response to whatever it is that we may be assuming or believing or expecting at any given time. And so we're reminded over and over again, it doesn't matter what the day signature is, it doesn't matter which angel we're working with, it doesn't matter what the virtue is. Over and over again, we're reminded to take ownership of that, to claim it, to begin to assume and to expect those things which are in alignment mm-hmm. with truth. This is why we've been working with themes like alignment. It's why today we're working with the themes of attunement and curation and harmony, as we very, very purposefully reconnect ourselves to that umbilical cord of provision. Mm-hmm. It's a really, really special opportunity for us to consciously return to the ground of that underlying truth. Exciting day.
Yeah.
And this is just the surface. We're just looking at the number 6. Mm-hmm. Like, so cool. There were a couple of other keynotes. We have secondary keynotes, more secondary keynotes for this particular number than any of the others. I'd mm-hmm. like to read them off briefly because they all kind of flavor our sense of celebration and home. So we have aesthetics, perfection, beauty, of course, poetry, and quality. These are our secondary keynotes. You can get a sense for that in the way we're talking. You can get a sense for that in the energy of the day. And we want to, even if only implicitly, carry all of that forward into these other themes we meet along the way in this conversation. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So that's the 6 of Wands. Mm-hmm. We have the prime instinct to rise. We're going to come back to that in a moment.
Okay.
We have the wand virtue of miracles.
Yeah.
I can't help but think of all the steps we've taken in these conversations in the past days and weeks as we worked through the development of these mental skills and the swords, and these very active, very decisive, totally deliberate steps we've taken in real life through the movement of these wands. Here we are officially having crossed the halfway point in this set of virtues that we refer to as wands. It's the 6 of wands. It only goes up to 10. We're on we've crossed the peak. We're coming down the other side now. This is where things start to really happen for us based on all the steps we've taken. And so, of course, today, on just the other side of that peak, we find miracles. Miracles await. To be even more accurate, miracles are always happening. It's just that all of the steps we've taken up until this point have led us to a point of awareness that permits the observation of those miracles, the very, very conscious awareness of those miracles. So we start to see things happen. Things have been happening all along, but now we're aware of it.
Right, exactly. The universe operates as a baseline as miraculous. Like miracles are the norm.
It's natural. Nature.
It is, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. We may or may not know that at first, but as we become more aware of it, we become simultaneously more humbled and more uplifted and more empowered as a result of that recognition. We become aware of our relationship to that intelligence, which is producing miracles.
Right. When we decide, we make that decision that we want to exist in this frequency of wonder and awe and amazement, then how does the universe respond to that? By giving us something to be awestruck by giving us something to be amazed by.
Yes.
Miracles. That's exactly what we get.
Yes. And what do you do when you recognize a real life miracle, an unavoidable, inexplicable miracle? You celebrate. You celebrate. What else is there to do? There's nothing else to do. You don't say, oh my, what a gift. How much do I owe you? You don't say, look what I did. I earned that. I somehow made something happen that I've never made happen before, and I'm in no way capable of making happen. That miracle is my fault. I did that. No, you know your hands were off. You chose very intentionally to surrender to something larger than yourself that somehow also includes yourself. And as a direct result of that, you are given this gift. And so the only thing to do, the only appropriate way of honoring that gift is celebrating it, enjoying it, marveling over it. So that's where we find ourselves. Very exciting day. If you visit the 6 of Wands page on our website and you just read the words at the top of the page in those icons, it from my perspective, it reads like the most exciting moment we've arrived at up until this point.
It's a really powerful sequence of words.
Oof, it is so cool, and we're in it. We're in it today. We've really felt it since we woke, even before we knew exactly what was happening. It's a big day. So we have this prime instinct to rise. We have this wand virtue of miracles, and then we meet the angels. We'll take a moment to talk about them. And then we're going to jump back to the tower, and we're going to just weave all of this into the story of this tower. That's what I see happening.
That sounds great.
Okay, so 28th angel.
I figured you were going to start with conviction.
Oh, how can we not? The angel of conviction. We have so much to say on this. We couldn't possibly squeeze it into this conversation. We've been going off on this all morning because it is so important and it is so directly connected to our stories. I can speak for myself. My story absolutely embodies what is being demonstrated by this angel, what is being called for or celebrated by this angel. Yes, I know this theme of conviction. I know this pathway of wholeheartedness. I know it in my own life leading up to our meeting, and I've witnessed it unfolding in every step of the life we've shared since meeting. So this is our story. It's my story, and based on what I know about you, it's your story too. Angel of conviction walks the pathway of wholeheartedness to become the very embodiment of daring. The first thing we noticed about this is that daring is not something this angel is trying to be. It's not a daredevil, not at all.
Right.
What it is wholehearted. And what it expresses is conviction. The thing is, when you are moving with your whole heart towards something which has called you, and you're doing this in the midst of other things, other circumstances, other people, other opinions, other ideas, and other expectations of you, you're going to find that, one, your actions appear risky, very risky to the world outside of you. You're going to find that your way of moving deeply intimidates those other people in your circle of influence who maybe do not want to move, or in most cases, this is the case, they're too afraid to move themselves. And so they become critical of your conviction because it's yours, not theirs. You know what you know. They may or may not know what you know. They may or may not agree that what you know is appropriate or correct. And you know what? It doesn't matter. You know what you know, so you move with wholehearted conviction toward what you know to move toward. And in doing so, you shake things up. Mm-hmm. Like it or not. Most of us don't like it. Mm-hmm. It's scary. We already feel so far out into the weeds. The reason this particular angel in reality doesn't feel like a daredevil is because it does not know where it's going necessarily.
Yeah.
It knows the direction it's being called in. Mm-hmm. But it's not like, strutting along, dun, 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 I am so powerful, I am so courageous, I am so convicted. Oh, at least from my own experience, I can tell you that the real life experience of conviction and wholeheartedness can be absolutely terrifying. You can feel, in fact, like the opposite of courageous, the opposite of daring. You can feel weak and small and confused and worried, and you can feel as though you're burning every bridge that matters to you and like you're disappointing everyone you most love. And yet, all along the way, in spite of all of that, when you move with wholehearted conviction toward what you've been called to do or to be or to yearn or reach for, whatever that is, as you move with wholehearted conviction, in spite of all that, you absolutely are becoming an embodiment of daring, even though you feel scared.
Yeah.
That's what the embodiment of daring is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw a quote just the other day that said that trust is not an intellectual concept. It has to be embodied.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're moving through in this particular example. Mm-hmm. You're literally embodying trust.
Yeah.
And it's totally outside the mind. You're actually moving through this process, and on the other side, you realize that the miracle that you've been given is trust, because despite what everything is telling you from the outside that seems really to just be crumbling or to make you second guess what's going on, the miracle is that everything not only turns out okay, but exactly right and better than you could have imagined.
Yeah, well, trust is an interesting word to carry into this context, because as you move with conviction on what you know to be true, and the world around you appears to crumble in response because everyone's worried for you, it seems, really what's happening is they're failing to trust in you. You don't know if you can trust yourself.
Right.
And yet you move. Why? Because you're choosing to trust. That's conviction. You're choosing to trust in something beyond you, something larger than you. That takes guts. Mm-hmm. It does. Mm-hmm. And it's also fair to say that when you've connected to that version of a calling, to something that deep, that rich, that real, it's utterly unavoidable. Yes. So to say it takes guts is true, but on the other hand, frankly, you don't have a choice.
No, yeah. What you're connecting to is a very, very deep seed inside of you.
Yep.
It has always been there, and you're connecting to like the deepest part of yourself.
Yes.
That is the truth.
Yep. And since life is liberating that seed and its ultimate expression, in a way, life moves you. You know what you need to do. You cannot help but do it. That's the best you could offer anyone questioning your wisdom in moving in these particular ways or directions. All you know is that I have to. Mm-hmm. I can't not. that doesn't qualify as a reasonable explanation for most. And yet that's exactly what this angel is willing to do. And it knows that if it will simply give its whole self over to that calling, it will always arrive at something miraculous. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't ever necessarily know the details of what that thing may be. It gets little senses, little hints, little tastes along the way. And then it lands, and then it arrives. The wild thing about this is when that arrival occurs, once you really, really do find the thing or arrive at the thing that you were being called to all along, you actually arrive at fulfillment. You legitimately achieve true fulfillment.
Perfection.
Yes.
That's the promise.
Yes.
It's like every movement is always in pursuit of this perfection and this harmony. So what seems like a shaking up is a reorganization to allow the true harmony to take place.
Yes. These words are imperfect because there is no arrival and there is no achieving. And fulfillment is built in all along the way. Mm-hmm. How does that work? It's paradoxical. The way it works is that perfection is already wide awake, totally vital and alive and active and real within you now. It's not actually some peak you're climbing and then you get at the peak and look, I did it. Mm-hmm. It's that you're actually peeling away impediments to the thing which is most real. Right. So yes, you arrive at a moment where that light has been cleared and it can shine, and enough of the mud has been moved out of the way, enough of the rubble has been, extracted to permit that light to shine. But it's not as if you're arriving at something outside of yourself, which is the very reason that fulfillment is inherent not only to the movement, but to the achievement of that, shining, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It's because it's been there all along. It's right. Not something outside of you.
It's a demonstration of what's inside of you.
Absolutely it is. Yeah. And this is the massive distinguishing factor, I would say, between what we're describing here as a wholehearted movement, as conviction and even daring. The difference between that and ambition and trying to achieve something through ambition is vast, because over and over again, we all know this. When you expend your energy, when you apply that effort through on the course of ambition, you never feel fulfilled at the end. You just don't. Or if you do, it's so momentary that it doesn't count, because as quickly as you're like, yes, you're empty. Mm-hmm. That is not what we're describing here. And I know it may sound like we're saying the same thing using different words. It is not the same thing. And the only reason we can speak to it is because we've tasted it.
Right.
We've lived that. Mm-hmm. So this angel of conviction walks the pathway of wholeheartedness. Yesterday we met the angel of resonance. Mm-hmm. And the very first words out of that angel's mouth, so to speak, were two phrases. One was all or nothing, and the other was no halfway measures. Mm-hmm. Of course, that blends into the energy of this day, wholeheartedness. There are no halfway measures. What we discovered, and this leads us, I think, a perfect segue into the 50th Angel of Attunement. We discovered that if we were to name this day anything, if we were to give it a tagline, so to speak, it would be do not settle. Do, period. Not, period. Settle, period. How could it be more emphatic? Do not settle. Why? Because that perfection you've sensed on some primitive level, on some ultimate level, it isn't just possible, it is. You're sensing something real, yes. And so you do not settle for anything short of that. Why would you settle for a piece of rubble when you could simply continue until the light shines?
Yeah.
You need to know that the light is there. You need to know that it exists and that you're not out of your mind. You need to know these things. And as you become more and more aware of them, which is what the swords are all about and what the wands are attempting to prove through real life experience, when you come to this understanding that, oh my, I'm not making this up. They're not making this up. This is all real. Life is this good, this kind, this capable. It does have my back. When you really get a sense of how real that is, you will never you'll never need anyone to tell you not to settle for rubble.
Right.
It will not be an option.
Mm-hmm.
You will be so well attuned to the particular pulse of reality that you will never fall for its facade of that reality again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you will never fall for the fake thing. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there may be times where you'll be given opportunities to settle. So there's always that, I think, temptation, but it's to keep you attuned. It's to keep you sharp so that you can actually witness the miracle unfold. You can say no to something that isn't quite there, isn't quite right. And in order to have the real miracle, show itself to you in the most spectacular way possible.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that you very well may settle at times. And that will simply serve the process of realizing what perfection is, what's truly calling you.
Mm-hmm.
You may settle for something that's really, really close, but not quite it. And you don't even know it's not quite it until you've been with it for long enough to be like, so close, but not quite. What we're describing is not perpetual dissatisfaction. What we're describing is discernment. What we're describing is attunement to nuance.
Mm-hmm.
What we're describing is conviction.
Yeah.
It is this marriage of conviction and attunement.
Right. And the thing is you can't escape it. You'll never be able to let go of that seed of perfection within you.
Mm-mm.
So even
You always know.
if you're moving through this process and you're with something that you're fully aware is not the ultimate, is not perfection, the amount of time that you are with that is helping build the ultimate celebration of when the miracle lands.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. An easy example of this in my mind is, I told you this story earlier today, but shopping for guitars.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of my favorite things to do with my parents. And there was a period of time where we were on the hunt for a particular guitar. We knew what the model was. We knew what we liked. But what we were finding is that this particular model sounded different based on the instrument itself. So you could have a lineup of a dozen of the same guitar. And because guitars and most instruments are so special in this regard, every one of those 12 guitars, though they're the same model, using the same tone woods, built even on the same machines, and finished by the same sets of hands, every one of those 12 will sound different. And so at the time, we actually went on this fairly long form journey of testing all these different guitars, playing all these different guitars, multiple models at each guitar shop. It was Guitar Center in most cases that we would find this particular model at. We played through so many of these. There were a lot of them available. And so we got this kind of unique opportunity to meet many different voices. Well, out of maybe a dozen of those instruments, there was far and away one of them that, to my ear anyway, just sang. It was altogether different from every other one. Had I simply allowed my excitement about the way that maybe the woods looked, or my sense of urgency just to own something, to disrupt or distract from this careful process of attunement, of listening for the holistic perfection, which includes not only the woods and includes not only the capacity to own it, but also that perfect voice, that singing that just touches me in some special way. At any point along the way, I could have been tempted, like you said, to just kind of get it done. Mm-hmm. And this is what happens when we get into the mind about things. This is what ambition does. It goes and buys the guitar because that's the aim. I'm gonna own this guitar. Mm-hmm. And if that were the aim, there's no such thing as fulfillment in that. You buy that guitar and then it sits in the case or hangs on the wall, or you're bored of it as quickly as you've got it, and you're on to another guitar. Mm-hmm. What we're seeking is something deeper. We're operating on a basis, on the promise that each of us gets to have it all. Right. And in this particular example, I knew that I was not going to purchase a guitar until that guitar had it all. Mm-hmm. And so I played and played and played until I found the one, and that was the one. And it came home with me. That's how this works. That's how this works on the subject of home, interestingly enough. We did this with the home we occupy right now, the house we live in. It's this way on the subject of career and partnership. Any direction you turn, you're being called to sense forward into a larger life, into a greater expression of that underlying perfection. And that thing when you find it. It'll never be in just one direction. It'll always be holistic,
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like if you aren't, aware that you have to really take the time to discover something in all of the facets. Like what creates the perfection of the thing that you're looking for. You might not understand what makes it perfect. You just know you
feel it.
You feel that there is a perfect thing. So what life does is it shows you. It's like, this is all the ways that you enjoy this thing and what makes it perfect for you. You get to actually experience that because you've moved through seeing what's not perfect.
It's really the only way. We can get so far in our minds and kind of like crafting and imagining and idealizing something. But it's not until we get our hands on it that you realize, oh, there's a lot more information here than my mind was able to kind of proactively compute. So you have to move into this process of wholehearted engagement. There's the path of wholeheartedness, and it directly ties to the path of the curator.
Absolutely.
It is about quality, not quantity. It's one thing to have a room full of random guitars. It's another thing to have a few of the very best guitars. And what life is calling us to do is to become curators in our life, in our experience, in our minds, and in our actions, so that we are constantly arriving at the highest and the best, and very relentlessly refusing to stop until we do.
Yeah, and it can be as simple as not giving up on that dream, like knowing it exists and being very attentive to that dream or whatever it is, the seed of that perfection that's within you. It's always going to be there, sort of like nagging at you anyways, but the path of the curator is really just shedding all of these layers that are not that thing, so that you can ultimately arrive at just the miracle that the thing that you were after exists.
Yes.
And it really is just a metaphor for your whole life.
Absolutely. What's interesting to me about how this plays out is that you really don't get to know what it is. That seed is, again, very paradoxically, simultaneously general and specific. For example, the seed of, I'll use another personal example. There's a clear seed of expression in me that has always been there. And so initially, the idea was, oh, I'm supposed to be a musician. And there's the expression through song. And when that breaks down, it's, well, I guess I'm supposed to be a poet. And so then you become, this poet, and you're internationally published and recognized as this very special poet. And it's like, that's not it either. Oh, I know. I'm supposed to be a writer. I'm a writer. And so you do that and still nothing.
Right.
The seed of expression is working itself out through all of these different avenues. It's all along the way, of course, nothing is wasted. It's actually developing all of these things in you didn't even know you needed. You're arriving at each of these ends going, failure. When I was at Guitar Center and I strummed a guitar and it didn't have the voice, I didn't think I was a failure. I just moved on to the next one. And I kept doing that until I found the voice. But that's an easy metaphor. The more challenging ones are the ones in life where we're like, I'm going to become this thing, or I'm going to commit myself wholly for all time to this career, this person, this whatever. And then it breaks and it folds. Why? Because we're failures? No, because life will not allow us to settle for less than the ultimate that it knows we deserve, that it has in store for us, that it is calling us toward. And so, no, not the musician. No, not the poet. No, not the writer. All of those things. How could I have ever known as a teenager, in my early 20s, in my early 30s? How could I have ever known 1 year ago that what was coming to express was all this? Mm-hmm. It didn't exist. It was not possible to know. There were no 64 angels. There was no liberated tarot. There was not even the slightest inkling of an idea that what we get to express now could be the thing. And now that we're here, what do we find? We find that we can't title it. What do we call this? It's not a poet, it's not a writer, it's not a musician, it's a Timothy. Mm-hmm. And it's a Laura. And it's a you. So that seed of expression, it was so perfectly specific that it called me, in this case, to something that literally didn't even exist until it existed through me, through us. And so general that it was able to move through all these different avenues as a developmental sequence leading up to this, bam, perfect point of precision of expression. That is amazing. Talk about a miracle. Mm-hmm. And if that's possible for me, it's definitely possible for you. Mm-hmm. If it's possible for Laura, it's definitely possible for you. Mm-hmm. This is the same story for all of us, playing itself out in utterly unique ways.
Yeah. I think that the embodiment for the 50th angel, this embodiment of harmony, mm-hmm. is another basically synonym to this idea of beauty or perfection.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just the synonym happens to give you this sort of sense that it is fluid, that it's always moving. Yeah. It's like this dynamic sort of movement.
Dance.
Yes.
I can't help but see the whole story played out in this embodiment. Of course, it's an embodiment. It's not the idea of harmony. It's the act mm-hmm. of harmony. Consider what that means. What that means is that, again, my own example, all along the way, you think you're failing. You think you're this bumbling idiot. You think you're tripping and falling. You think you're breaking things. And you finally arrive at this awareness that none of that's what was actually happening. You were not failing at all. It's like you fall into these arms of love that say, honey, you weren't tripping. You were dancing and you did great. You did perfect. Look. Mm-hmm. Look at this epic that you just lived out. You did that. You did perfectly. You didn't miss or skip a freaking beat. It was flawless. And you're like, maybe that's true. Maybe the sense of failure had nothing to do with me. Maybe that was all about other people's opinions mm-hmm. and other people's expectations and my own self-policing based on those totally external, totally inappropriate opinions and expectations and voices. All of that noise was distracting me from the perfection of my own journey. And you know what? The moment you see that for the first time, it's over.
Yeah.
You do not let it happen any longer. Mm-hmm. You realize that you are the one drafting your own epic narrative and that you're doing that moment by moment and that you can't get it wrong.
Yeah.
There's no way to get it wrong.
What you're describing is the prime instinct to rise. It's absolutely the thing. I mean, you have this supposed crumbling tower mm-hmm. that was built on shoddy foundations, and the moment lightning strikes it, it just crumbles to the ground. Mm-hmm. But that's that mistaken idea of failure. That's the totally mistaken idea that what you were doing was somehow incorrect, but the whole time it was absolutely contributing to your ability to rise from that and continue on dancing, continue on your particular journey. And really, whatever was crumbling was just further revealing closer and closer that perfection of you.
Yeah.
Honing that jewel within, or to reveal that light that was always inside the tower.
Yeah. So our image, totally unexpectedly, what we arrived at this morning was this image of this really old, beat up looking tower. And it looks like ruins to begin with, even when it's standing, but at least it's standing. And this great big tower is erected around a beacon. Mm-hmm. It's erected around a lighthouse. inside, at the core of this tower, is this brilliant light. But somewhere along the way, there was this sense that that light needed to be protected against potential damage. And so this fortress of ideas is erected around that tower, that light. Unfortunately, in the attempts to protect the light, we also subdue the light. It can't get out. And so what we were kind of amazed to discover is that this traditional idea of a tower getting struck by lightning is actually quite different from what's truly happening here. What's happening is that the inner light is so unavoidable. It is so in need of, or guaranteed to, express. It's in need of expression. It's guaranteed to express. And so literally this tower inevitably must be just burnt up from the inside out. It crumbles because the pressure of original expression is so large, because the pressure of your desires are so large, because the promise of life's delivery of those very things you most desire is so large. It's all built in. The tower crumbles in order to give you what you've been asking for. But when the tower involves a lot of ideas about yourself and about the people around you and about what they expect of you and about what being a good person means and about what being humble or responsible might look like, when those bricks that you've stacked up all around your light are built of those things and they start to come down, you feel like you're being irresponsible. You feel like you're hurting the people you most love. You feel like you're being unwise. You feel horrible. And yet, they have to come down. That wall must crumble. And so amazingly, on the other side of this breakdown, this terrifying tower card that's been such a thorn in the side of the tarot from the beginning, no one wants the tower, we find that this is not about breakdown. It's about erecting or permitting the light of largeness that is you, and finally allowing that greater thing to rise and to have its life and to express. That's what we see in the tower. That's what we see here, because there's no other way to survive the crumbling of all those bricks other than what we've seen here. It requires willingness to meet those moments with conviction, with a clear sense, a clear awareness of why it's happening, of the larger story you're a part of.
Yeah. If you think about good stories, a good story has to have that redemption moment at the end. If there's no redemption moment, it's not a good story, and it's not the end of the story.
It's written into almost every single story arc, any book you read, any movie you watch. We joke about it all the time. 20 to 30 minutes before the end of the story, you're going to watch everything fall apart for your main character. I mean, and in such a way that it's like, well, they're screwed. There's no way out of that one. And inevitably, I mean, you're watching a 2 or 3 hour long movie, and somehow, miraculously, in the last minutes of that movie, everything resolves. It's wild. There's a reason this is written into our stories. It's because it's showing us something. We're meant to live this. We're not meant to talk about it. We're not meant to consider it. We're certainly not meant to go like this, la, 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 and pretend it's not happening. We're meant to meet it. And we're meant to meet it with conviction. We're meant to deliver our whole hearts over in complete trust to that movement, which is, in fact, producing the very things you've requested of life, the very things that you came to be involved in and to bring forward, and ultimately to erect in your expression of that life, in your unique expression of that life. Your light tower is meant to shine. It is not meant to be guarded. There's nothing to protect against. That outside wall must come down. And so we have the work of the curator, this wholehearted engagement, this act of not criticism, but discernment. As you say, close but not good enough. There's more. I get to have it all. I get to have a life that is fulfilling. I get to offer my heart and my time and my energy and my money. I get to invest all of my being in a direction that aligns with what I most enjoy. You get to do that. You get to say that. Most importantly, you get to live that. That's what the curator is doing. It is refusing to allow some piece of rubble to
into the museum.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's that curator part of you is a little demanding and a little insistent, and
It ought to be.
this doesn't belong in this stunning museum of artifacts.
Mm-hmm. This is not difficult to do if you know that the real thing exists. If you're shopping for guitars and you know that there is a guitar that will give you the chills, you will not waste your money on one that doesn't. If you know it's there, you will find it. Mm-hmm. If you know that perfection is the underlying truth of your existence, if you know that there is no such thing as failure, that life is only good, and that you get what you wish for when you commit your whole self toward it, you don't stop halfway. I love this story Abraham Hicks tells about driving from Arizona to Los Angeles. If you know that it's only this amount of time or distance from Arizona to Los Angeles, you simply drive from Arizona to Los Angeles. You don't get halfway along. You don't get into Death Valley and say, this is just too hot and dusty and it just seems like, I can't see Los Angeles on the horizon, so it's probably not even there. And then you turn back and drive to Phoenix.
Right. You know it's there.
You know it's there, even though you can't see it. And so you keep on driving until you arrive. It would be foolish to keep going halfway and coming back, keep going halfway and coming back. But how many of us in our little towers have either never once left Phoenix or struck out on a minor campaign only to turn around and say, hey, I tried. Mm-hmm. Life is saying, don't try, do.
Right.
What you wish for exists. This is a real thing you're sensing. And the moment you deliver your whole self to it, regardless of what anyone else may think, you're going to get that thing. And amazingly enough, when you do, what do you become? You become a beacon. You become a lighthouse. You become a way shower. You're showing all of the people in their tiny boxes afraid to move that if they will simply choose to move, life happens. You now become a demonstration of that, an ambassador of that. It's a word we've been playing with this morning. Mm-hmm. You become a real life example of the real life available to every single one of us without fail. That's what this day signature 50, is calling for in every single one of us, is celebrating in every single one of us, because it knows that this is not a potential reality. It knows that this is the reality. So it's saying, yeah, awesome. You are that big. Miracles do exist. You are rising. Not just you will, maybe, hopefully, someday rise. It's happening. Those bricks are crumbling down and your light is shining, will shine out beyond those bricks to touch others. Stick with it. That's what it's saying. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we're going to do with it.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, it's a really exciting day. Mm-hmm. I love the word conviction so much. I just feel like I could put my own personal roots down in that so completely because...
Well, it's a beautiful concept.
Yes.
And because it's a beautiful concept, that's why we can trust it. That's why we know it's true, it's worthy.
You can feel the strength in it.
Absolutely, you can trust it.
And that's how you know you can trust it, because of how it feels. That's what the Angel of Resonance came to teach us yesterday, so that when we arrived at this great big moment today with words like miracles and conviction and harmony, it's like, that sings. I feel that. That's correct. Mm-hmm. You now have a relationship to the equipment that tells you when you're right on theme. And so you tune, and you don't stop until you're in tune. And you don't settle for anything less than the thing, whatever it may be. You do this on every subject in your life. Mm-hmm. You do become demanding, but that demand is not critical. It's discerning, because you know that guitar is waiting.
Yep. Do not settle.
I'm just checking if there was anything else. I mean, it's certainly one of these signatures we could just go on and on about. It's so...
Well, everybody's walking this path. We all have countless examples.
Yeah.
And so, and it's descriptive of what life is, like what we're doing.
Yeah, it is. I think what I'm looking for is twofold. On the one hand, I can't help but see sovereignty connected to conviction. Mm-hmm. That what you know.
Right.
That's on purpose. That's for you to know. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks about what you know. If you will trust what you know, understanding what it's rooted in, you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
And the other side of that is, as you follow what you know, as you choose to act with your whole heart in trust, as you're doing this and feeling like this is risky, all of my strategies and previous ideas and support systems are gone. And I think I might actually just like die. Like, I don't think this is good. I don't know if it's working.
Mm-hmm.
When you're feeling that, realize that your decision to keep going in spite of that is the embodiment of daring.
Yeah.
That's what this angel is about. It's okay to be afraid. But what's better is to realize that there's nothing to be afraid of, because you are that held, you are that supported. And the moment you begin to permit yourself to live as if that were in fact true, you witness it. And that's the miracle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. If you feel like you're off in the weeds, take note, you are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Nor are you out in the weeds. You're just on a path that has never been beaten before. And that's the point. It's your path. Well done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there it is. Day signature 50. Thank you for joining us. We love these moments with you.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Sound good?
Yep.
All right. Goodbye for now.
Bye.